Welcome to Doc NYC and the special Q&A for the film Til Kingdom Come. I'm Tom Powers, the festival's artistic director. I'm pleased to have the director, Maya Zinshtein, and the producer and cinematographer, Abraham Troen, joining us from Tel Aviv. Maya and AB, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Tom. Good to be with you.
Thank you for having us.
Maya, can you start just by describing your own background and the factors that helped shape your outlook?
So I'm an Israeli filmmaker and a journalist. And in my previous film, Forever Pure, that also has been screened in Doc NYC, I think I like to explore the dark side of the moon. And for me, when I came across this story of the support of the Christian evangelicals here in Israel and in the Middle East, I was quite amazed that this story is almost not spoken at all, not here in Israel, but also not in the United States, where mainly the Christian evangelicals are connected to question as judges or birth control. And I think that all the conversation, and I think people looking at what President Trump has been doing for the last 4 years here in our region, and not quite understanding what is going on. You know, usually Israel is connected to the Jewish question. And I think here what we found was actually this unbelievable influence that the Christian evangelicals has on the American policy here, but also their involvement here in Israel on the level of the financial support. So it all comes together to my favorite topics of politics, money, and power.
You mentioned your film Forever Pure. That film was looking at an Israeli football team that outraged its fans when it recruited 2 Muslim players, and you really saw this kind of right-wing tendency come out as the fans turned against their own team. In this film, you're kind of looking at a related topic of right-wing tendencies in Israel. So when you describe that subject matter as the dark side of the moon, and can you elaborate what attracts you to that strain of Israeli politics?
Well, I think usually people, we all know that the moon is there, and they usually just see just part of it. And I think, when I came across this story, it was in June 2017. It was way before President Trump had made any significant step here, that kind of, before he gave any gift to the evangelicals. But when I looked at that, it was quite amazing for me that there's this amazing, huge power that actually happens on the underneath, but actually affects my daily life. I have a brother that will go, that in the reserve forces of the IDF, and he will go to fight the next war. And I was wondering in the name of whom is going to fight this war. And I think what I discovered, that he's mainly also going to fight a war in the name of people that very willing to see Messiah is coming back as soon as possible, by the way, from the Jewish side and from the evangelical side. And I think this cooperation of people that, people that are connected to faith, religious people that somehow succeeding to cooperate together, kind of closing their eyes on these huge differences that they have, which is Jesus Christ, which is quite a big difference. But they understanding that they can achieve something today, something political, by, for example, having all the West Bank being kept on the hands in Israeli hands, or other achievements that moving the embassy of the American embassy to Jerusalem. So for me, it was very interesting to explore this very unholy bond.
AB, let me bring you into this as the camera person and producer on the project. You and Maya were traveling through Middle America to these evangelical territories that are foreign even to some of us who live in blue state America. what was that experience like for you?
Well, I think it was a complicated experience. You know, I think we were welcomed in a way that we could never have imagined by our subjects who really brought us in, specifically as Israelis. In other words, you know, in documentary filmmaking, there's always this interesting relationship between subject and filmmaker. In this case, as you saw, between evangelicals and Israelis with our national flags waving in front of churches in a coal mining town is something we could never have imagined. And I think ultimately there was a lot of curiosity on both parts. So we were curious about them and they were very curious about us, because people who had given a lot of money to Israel and cared deeply about the Jewish people, this was an opportunity for them to meet the first Israeli in their lives. So in that sense, it really was something very special that happened both, you know, on camera and behind.
And you know, what were those dialogues like? I mean, you know, those evangelicals that you're talking to may have a projection of Israelis that you don't necessarily fit.
Definitely. I would say, firstly, it was we discovered a lot of things that we had in common. You know, like they would talk about Bibi Netanyahu and a certain Israeli history, and we could say, oh, we know about Israeli history. Then we'd reach a point where our perception of that history was completely different. So, you know, it's also a film about a pastor and his father and legacy and family. So we could talk to them a great deal about that. But when it came to questions of what will happen at the end of times and will we burn in hell, there we each had to say, okay, we'll keep our point of view and, you know, you'll have to keep yours.
Maya, can you talk about that scene that comes near the end of the film where you're talking to Pastor William Bingham III in Kentucky, and he gives a very emotional speech about what he sees as the future of non-believers and end times. What was that day of filming like for you?
So I think, you know, it's very interesting because in Forever Pure, there were people that standing on the stands and shouting death to Arabs. So all the conflict was very exposed. You needed to film it. And I think here, one of the biggest challenge of this film was that all our characters were constantly saying, oh, there's no conflict here. Even though it's very clear that there's this huge elephant in the room and everyone just deciding to ignore it. So I think, you know, and I had with Pastor William quite a few interviews, and it was slowly but surely. And, you know, it's interesting because it also connects to the question that you asked, how it was to be an Israeli in this place. And I think the fact that I'm Israeli, it allowed me maybe to ask questions that maybe would be considered inappropriate if I would be someone else, because, you know, and it's about me and it's about my future. So I think I have all the right to ask them these questions. And, you know, and this end scene, which I think when it was the first time when he kind of, you know, just said it, you know, and it was amazing because it was finally someone said it and spoke it loud, and it was a huge, for me, you know, it wasn't not an achievement, but I really want, you know, that's what for me to explore the dark side of the moon is actually to bring to make these people to speak and to explain their beliefs. You know, I could make a film about Christian evangelicals without interviewing one evangelical, but that's not the film that I want to make. And I'm very happy that, you know, he felt comfortable enough and to say it to us. And it was after, I think it was on our 4th or 5th trip to Kentucky, and we spent there a long time. And I think you developing a certain relationship that at one point, I think you can ask the hard questions, and hopefully people will answer you. And I appreciate that that he was honest. I always appreciate an honesty in my character. I think it's extremely important.
Amy, I want to ask you about what you observe about Maya as a director in both this film and Forever Pure. She's put herself into these intense situations, facing people with intense ideologies, which takes a mental strength and emotional strength. Can you talk about the skills that she brings to this?
Oh man, where do I begin? I mean, I think Maya has to be one of the most courageous people I know. And I would say there are two parts to the courage. The first is this sense of access, the basic sense, like, we're going into the White House, we're going to get behind the scenes, we're going to get as close as possible to the story. But I would say the second kind of courage is far more intimate and sensitive, which is the ability to really step by step go get close to your character and very honestly say questions like, are we going to hell? Or what do you really believe? And get both ends of that. So I would say it's the ability to get the big story and kind of go there with a burning passion, be it, a point of view that she may not share. And at the same time, to really go up close, intimate, detailed with the characters. It's been really a real journey of 2.5 years in this world. So, yes.
I should acknowledge for viewers that we're recording this about 6 weeks before the US election. So people who are watching this are in the future. They know things that we don't yet know about what is happening in November. But I want to ask you, Maya, what you're going to be watching for in this US election and what you think the implications are for Israel.
Well, I definitely hope that United States will kind of go in a direction where, where we will go back to be a much more liberal society. I think it has an implications not only on people in the United States, but of course, and all over the world. I think especially here, it's always, it's frightening me, to be honest, when I understand that people that standing behind the US president are actually thinking about the second coming and not specifically thinking about my daily life as an Israeli citizen. So I definitely hope, and I'm always saying we're a China store here and you need to move very carefully here. And every move that United States makes here has huge influence on Israelis and Palestinians and the whole region. And I think here all the people, want to live in better life, in a sense of also safer life. And I definitely hope that, and I really jealous of the people in the future and the viewers that actually knows or maybe close to know what's going to happen. I definitely hope that the people that will lead America would be more from the liberal side, that that will give the place to all the things that I believe in, which is first of all, you need to think on the human beings and not about about other ideas that maybe will happen or not in the very far future. That's definitely my hope. That's that's the thing. We live we think we live in a secular world, but what we discovered in these 3 years that there's a secular leaders that really backed by a very hardcore religious powers, and I think that's something that that can be extremely dangerous for all of us.
Go ahead, Avi.
No, I just wanted to add on to what Maya said, going back to your first question about audiences in blue states who are not necessarily aware of this red or conservative America or know about it, but it's very vague. I think that one of the big aha moments for us is exactly what Maya said, that, you know, this is a real part of the American democracy, includes a huge part that really believes in this. And I think for viewers, whether they're in red states, but especially in blue states, apropos Doc NYC, this is something going forward, even past 2020, that people really need to take in consideration in a real way. And we hope that this film, you know, lasts, you know, even past 2024, regardless of the results, because that truth about America will remain.
Yeah, I just want to add, you know, even if President Trump wins or Biden wins, you know, 25% of the American population are not going to disappear with these elections, and they're going to stay. And I think this film is actually an amazing opportunity to kind of to get a glimpse into this world. And I do think, and as AB mentioned earlier, the fact that we were Israelis, you know, if we were a Jewish American filmmakers from New York, there's probably zero chances that we could film this. So I do think that we received this opportunity to go and to explore these areas that has a huge, huge influence on the daily life of every American.
Well, I thank you both for this film and for taking the time to speak with us after. Maya Zinshtein, Abraham Troen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.